All right. Good morning and welcome, everyone. I am Casey Chummer. I'm the Executive Director of the Idaho Wheat Commission. Thank you so much for joining us today for From the Field, our monthly farm chat with the Idaho Wheat Commission. And in fact, this month we are offering 2 webinars to take advantage of the fact that more of you might be working from your offices due to the weather. And today we are going to discuss USDA's National Resources Conservation Service, better known as NRCS, and what it can do for your farming operations. We are joined today by Amie Miller, the Acting State Conservationist, and Lori Kassib, the NRCS Idaho ASTC for programs. She can explain a little bit more about that. And they will both make some remarks on the benefits of NRCS and how it can and what that can offer your farm. And we will leave plenty of time for questions. We do encourage questions. Please feel free to write them in the chat box as we go along, or turn on your microphone during the question and answer. And we would be happy to have more of a discussion than a lecture, so please don't be shy. And we are going to turn it over to Amie. She will start out, and thank you so much for joining us, ladies.
Yeah, thank you for inviting us. I know Curtis is who most of you are used to working with, and right now he's serving in detail. He'll be back with us next month. So he asked that I come on this meeting to meet with you folks, and we appreciate the opportunity to talk to you all about, what we have to offer here in Idaho. So I'm just going to go over our 3 priorities that our chief has established moving forward that we're working toward over the next few years. And then Lori will talk about our specific programs and upcoming deadlines and those kinds of things. Our first priority, of course, climate smart agriculture. NRCS provides agriculture producers and landowners financial assistance and one-on-one technical support to plan and implement voluntary conservation practices. The outcomes are a benefit for producers and the environment, with producers conserving natural resources and delivering environmental benefits while building resiliency to strengthen their working land. While NRCS offers a broad array of conservation practices, the agency identifies a subset critical for reducing greenhouse gas emissions, sequestering carbon, and ultimately mitigating the impacts of climate change. These climate smart conservation practices will be prioritized in this targeted equipment period that we have, and support first systems for building soil health, improving nitrogen management, improving livestock waste management systems, enhancing grazing and pasture management, improving agroforestry, forestry, and upland wildlife habitat, and improving conservation management for rice production. Urban agriculture is another one of our priorities. Urban agriculture pioneers are taking action in their communities, growing not only fresh, healthy produce, but also providing jobs, beautifying their neighborhoods, and offering across access to fresh, healthy food in areas where grocery stores are sparse. So we're going to provide some technical assistance and financial assistance for urban growers in areas for soil health, irrigation, water conservation, weeds and pests, and high tunnels. We also have equity and inclusion in program delivery and technical assistance. We're committed to the values of equity and inclusion, rooted in justice and equal opportunity for our employees and those we serve. USDA as a whole is taking bold historic action to root out generations of systematic racism, to deeply integrate equity in decision-making and policy-making, and to build equitable systems and programming inclusive for all of our employees and all of our customers. In particular, our historically underserved conservation cooperative agreements are available to entities and individuals for 2-year projects that expand the delivery of conservation assistance to farmers who are beginning, limited resource, socially disadvantaged, and veteran farmers. USDA is investing $50 million, and projects will help historically underserved farmers and ranchers in implementing natural resource conservation practices that improve soil health, water quality, provide habitat for wildlife species of concern, improve the environment and economic performance of working agriculture land, and build and strengthen local food projects that provide healthy food and economic opportunities. So a lot of this, we've been working through this for years. This is just our emphasis. Sorry. These are our goals that we're working toward, and some of it we've been working toward again, but we're emphasizing and moving forward, continuing to help producers and land managers. So if you know NRCS, this isn't a whole lot different other than our goals and things that we're pushing, to the forefront for the upcoming years. So I'll stop there, and I don't know if you want to do questions now or go ahead and have Lori talk. Casey, you let us know.
If anybody has questions already, please feel free to either put them in the chat or go ahead and put your mic on, but otherwise we will let Lori go ahead and we can do questions all at the end. I'm not seeing any, so Lori, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Casey. I am going to share my screen here. Okay. And Casey, can you just let me know if you can see my presentation?
We can, yes.
Okay, let me go ahead and present it then. Maybe. There we go. Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Lori Kassib, and Casey introduced me as the ASTC for programs. That's an acronym that stands for Assistant State Conservationist of Programs. And so my job is to take all the money that we get and roll it out to you all according to policy. It is basically a pretty nuts and bolts description of my job. Amie and I always encourage you guys to work with your local office. They're your biggest contact to help you with all of the different programs that we have. So please always start there. But if you have any questions related to programs, some of the assistance that you were provided in the field, please reach out to us. We're here to help. We want to make sure that there is no limit or barrier for you guys to participate in our programs. And we want to hear from you. So if you need any assistance, please feel free to get in touch. I'm sure Casey can share my information with you guys after this, as well as Amie's. And I am going to talk about our newest program that's coming down the line this year. And if you guys will all please do me a favor, I've been working with the agency for 25 years now. And so the bad part about that is that I get into this government speak. So if I do that, please stop me. Casey, you can stop me. You guys can raise your hand, however, but please make sure I don't talk about acronyms that you don't understand, because it's so easy for me to do that. And it's not my intention at all. And actually, I hate it when people do that to me. So please keep me honest here. So the first program that I really want to talk about is our Environmental Quality Incentive Program. And the new attachment to that is called our Conservation Initiative Contract. So you all who are familiar with NRCS are probably familiar with EQIP, but the CIC is kind of a new twist that we are rolling out this year according to the Farm Bill. And again, you'll see here the enrollment option was created under the 2018 Farm Bill, but we are just now getting around to having policy developed for that, to make this available to everyone. Last year, it was a piloted project, and there are 4 states that participated to see how it went and if there were any tweaks that we needed to make for this year. And so what it is basically a stepping stone between the regular EQIP and then what we call CSP, which is our Conservation Stewardship Program. And some of you guys may be familiar with that too. We're kind of excited about this because it's an opportunity to take some baby steps before committing to the Conservation Stewardship Program. that is a very intense management program. And some folks may be ready to take that jump, but others might not be. And this is the great in-between program to kind of get a feel for whether or not you are ready for CSP Classic. And we'll get into some more details here as I go on. Amie talked about this in the beginning, climate smart practices. That has been a big push with this current administration. And you'll hear that catchphrase a lot in stuff that we're doing. And so there was some tweaks made to this program after it was rolled out in 2021 to include those climate smart practices, and also as a measuring tool to make sure that we can start monitoring our practices in relation to the climate smart requirements. So I talked about this a little bit about it being a stepping stone. It is because under EQIP CIC, you don't have to enroll your entire ag operation. You do have to enroll your entire ag operation under CSP, which makes it really scary. But with EQIP CIC, you don't have to do that. You get to pick and choose the piece of ground that you want to participate in this program. And it could be multiple pieces. You know, I'm not limiting it to a piece. It could be, maybe it is the majority of your operation, but it isn't on certain pieces. So it allows you a lot of flexibility that our CSP program does not allow you. And at the end, I'll get into some CSP stuff, but I really wanted to focus on this because it is so new, and I'm sure you guys are going to have questions for me. At least I hope you do. So our sign up hasn't officially been released. So you guys are hearing hot off the presses what it's going to look like for next year, or for this year. I'm sorry, we are in 2022. Our application deadline is going to be April 29th. So if you're interested in this program that I talked about today, you'll definitely want to contact your local office and get an application in. Make sure your farm records are updated. All of the eligibility requirements that would be required to participate in our regular programs are needed. And I just kept some of these other deadlines here. They're all internal for us. And then the goal is that your contract is obligated by the end of the summer so that you can start with your practices in October. You may be able to start a little bit earlier than that. It will kind of depend on how quickly we get through the process. And as you guys all know, we're still in a continuing resolution right now, and we don't have a full budget. So because of that, that pushes back our ability to obligate stuff. So again, these are our goals. This is what we're really striving to, but for all of our programs, everything has to be obligated by the end of September, period. We have to meet that deadline. And so how EQIP CIC was established is that we all got together with our local committees and partners to establish a high priority area. And for this year, because it is so new, we went with the whole state of Idaho. These high priority areas can be defined to watersheds. They can be confined to certain land uses. There's really no limit as to what a high priority area can look like. But because this is so new and we wanted to encourage as much participation as possible, we opened it up to all of Idaho. It made sense to us to do that, to see what barriers there are. And to be frank too, we didn't have a lot of time to come up with some of these options before Congress said, okay, you need to submit us your plan. So we went kind of the easiest route, but think it's the most inclusive route as well. And so under this, we also have to establish 3 priority resource concerns for the land use that we have under the high priority area. So for us, it's 3 priority resource concerns for cropland, rangeland, pastureland, and forest, and then of course associated ag land and the farmstead. They also have to correspond with our conservation stewardship priority resource concerns. So as you can see from this slide, I have both our conservation CSP resource concerns, and then the ones that we picked to focus on under EQIP CIC. Again, we picked these because we feel that there's a really broad need of these resource concerns and that they treat multiple things under these categories. So I'm not going to read those to you because you guys can all read them. The biggest one that I think that applies to you guys is, of course, the cropland with the soil quality limitations, and then field sediment, nutrient, and pathogen loss, as well as wind and water erosion. So with that, it's kind of, I'm sure you guys are asking, well, what is the difference between this and regular EQIP? And the difference is that these EQIP CIC contracts are 5 years in length. Our other contracts are only 3, sometimes they're 2, or they can be more than 5. This is a 5-year limit. Can't exceed it, can't go under it. You have to have the contract for 5 years. The other requirement, and Amie again mentioned this, the climate smart practices, you have to include one of these climate smart practices over here in your contract. So that is a requirement in order to participate in that EQIP CIC, but you can also add additional practices that you need to. So for example, you guys might be interested in a cover crop and then doing some minimum till or reduced till. Those are 2 practices that qualify for that climate smart, but you might need some additional infrastructure in there to be able to do that. You might need some fences. You might need to be controlling some weeds, all kinds of different things. Maybe you need some irrigation improvements too. You could include all of those as long as you are planning to do cover crop as well as residue, tillage management, reduced till or no till. Again, you could just get away with doing just cover crop, just doing one of these practices, but you have a suite of other practices that you need assistance with. You could do that all under there. And there's an example of the prescribed grazing plan. I don't know that that's a relevant example for you guys, but that's what the slide says. So then again, what we do, these are management practices over here. And so these management practices that you pick, you'll get a payment for every year. And then the supporting practices that we talked about, like maybe the fence, the water development, weed spraying, those you will get paid for as you get them completed. So you essentially could get multiple payments a year, depending on what your schedule of operation looks for your contract. So then real quickly, I wanted to provide you guys with our CSP deadlines as well, because I can see there being kind of, do I apply for EQIP CIC or do I apply for a stewardship program? That application cutoff deadline is going to be sooner. It's March 11. And then again, the rest of the stuff is all internal, but the big deadline for you guys to be aware of is that March 11 deadline. And if it were me, I might apply for both programs and see if I get accepted in CSP, or if I don't, then I have a backup and I know that I can participate in EQIP CIC. The kicker is that you can't do these 2 programs on top of each other, or another EQIP contract that would have a similar practice. You can't pancake. So if you haven't participated with us or they're new practices,
on new pieces of ground, maybe you are participating with us, but you have some other stuff that isn't tied to that contract, you can apply for EQIP CIC under that. So that's the end of my presentation. I wanted to keep it pretty clean and simple, so that if you guys had questions, you could ask me those. So Casey, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Lori. That was great information, and I can see at least one person taking notes. So I'm hoping that there might be some questions out in the participants. So if you guys want to turn on your microphone and ask any of those questions, please do so. Okay, I don't see anyone turning their mic on yet, so I will start with one, Lori. This is maybe in regards to several of the different programs, but all related to the conservation initiatives and the climate smart agricultural practices. As you know, a lot of our growers have already been implementing a lot of no-till, and we maybe use different terminology and we don't use necessarily the soil health, but our growers have been working on those kind of sustainable practices for many years. And I'm curious if there's a way that they will get credit for what they've already done in working for these programs, or how that works.
Yeah, Casey, that's a great question. And the only program that we have that currently does take that into account is that conservation stewardship program, because it looks at where the current benchmark is. And so if there are more progressive operators out there that have already been doing some of this stuff, they do get credit for that under that conservation stewardship program. EQIP is kind of the opposite. It's taking the worst ground and treating it, whereas the conservation stewardship program is awarding those folks who are already doing good things, but encouraging them to take their management level up to another notch. So there's still some additional requirements that folks have to do under CSP, but yeah, they should already be doing some really good work out there, Casey, in order to be ready for that conservation stewardship program.
Great, thank you. Okay, I'm still not seeing anyone turning on their microphone. Little crickets out there. One thing that I noticed when I was preparing for this, I saw that if growers have previously developed a conservation plan with NRCS, they may already be kind of one step ahead in applying for some of these other programs. Is that right?
That is right. Yeah, basically what we would do is just kind of take that existing plan and tweak it a little bit, but that's easier for us. If there's already a plan established, it's less work that we have to do to develop that contract. So yeah, having a plan in place is always great. Keeping those farm records up to date is always a really good idea too, Casey. Things change, I totally get that. But it's always good to get in there and get those updated with the Farm Service Agency before the deadlines, so that you're not holding up anything. But yeah, that's true. If you've worked with us before, it's always easier to come back into the door. But again, if you haven't, please don't let that keep you from coming in. We would like to provide some assistance if you want it from us.
Great. Okay, Brett, you have a
Yeah, if you don't mind, I could ask a quick question, and it might seem silly. I know some people, and I'm one of them, with a CSP contract ready to expire. It's eligible to be renewed or enhanced. But until this morning, I've never been familiar with the term CSP Classic. Is there a separate definition for what I have in force, eligible to be enhanced or renewed, and classic? And can an operator go back and forth and say, well, rather than renew this, I want to go classic, so to speak? Is that
yeah. It is, Brett, and thank you for that question. Again, that's the government talk in us, right? So the CSP Classic is that original sign up that you would have signed up originally, Brett. So once you have that original CSP contract, then everything after that, Brett, is considered a renewal. And it's considered a renewal because there were some stipulations that were put on the ability to be able to renew. Some of those stipulations are changing under this current administration, Brett. So in the end, I don't know if we will even have the designation between CSP Classic and CSP Renewal. I hope that it just goes back to regular old CSP. But one of the big issues with that, Brett, and I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with this, and this may be getting too deep into the weeds, but last year and previous farm bills starting in 2018, there was a 2-year cooling off period. If you had a CSP contract and you chose not to renew it, then you had to wait 2 years before you could come back and participate with CSP. That is going by the wayside. I've heard that the chief is going to be signing waivers where the 2-year cooling off period will no longer be applicable. So you won't be penalized if you decide not to renew your original CSP contract. And Brett, to answer your question in terms of back and forth, they're the same program. CSP Renewal and CSP Classic is the exact same program. The restrictions just get a little bit tougher to participate in those renewals. So if you get to the point where you're looking at a renewal and the activities that you want to do aren't going to match up, or there's no activities that you want to do, everything is a little bit more intense than what you want to do on that ground, you could let your contract expire and then sign up for EQIP CIC. You could definitely do that because a lot of the activities under the CSP program are going to be similar under EQIP CIC. So that's an option that you have in your situation where you're looking at renewal. Really see if that renewal fits. CSP is a great program. Please don't get me wrong and think that I'm selling one program over the other, but I encourage you guys to look at all of your options, especially now that you have more. It used to be it was CSP or not CSP, and that's not the case anymore. So really look at that, Brett, and don't feel forced into a renewal now because you have some more options out there.
Great question, Brett. Thank you. All right, I see Daniel on. You're up.
Hi. Yeah. First of all, just want to introduce myself. My name is Daniel Wilcox. I work for a couple of nonprofit groups, Henry's Fork Foundation out of Ashton, Idaho, and Friends of the Teton River in Teton Valley. And what I do specifically is I work with farmers to go out and get grants and implement different practices and like ag best management practices. And we've worked with NRCS quite heavily and been involved in our local working groups and been involved in soil conservation district meetings. And anyway, first off, hats off to NRCS. I think this is going to be a really great program, kind of filling a void of kind of our one-time participants and maybe those that are a little weary of being in a CSP. My question directly for this is, when we enroll a producer on, previously a regular EQIP contracts, for example, a 1-year cover crop, is that acreage eligible to be put into the CIC?
Yeah, great question. And the answer is that it might be. if they have already been paid for that 1 year of cover crop and that contract is scheduled to expire, then yes, they could enroll that same ground into EQIP CIC.
Okay, great, thank you.
Mhm.
Great, another good question. Not seeing any others in the chat, or if people are turning on their mic or videos. I am going to put a link in the chat box to our page with all of the other from the field registrations and the archive of the other webinars that we've done. We are going to have a second part of NRCS later this month in 2 weeks. And so please sign up on our website so that you are registered for that. And then also if you have time to go back and look at some of our past topics, I think that this is a really good time to go back and either watch those or listen to them on a podcast platform. So I'm still not seeing any other hands raised or anything like that. So I think since we've exceeded our 30 minutes, we will wrap it up here and thank both Lori and Amie for joining us today, and all of the participants who are either with us live here, and thank you for asking questions, and then anybody who's watching a recorded version later. Really appreciate the participation, and hope that you will fill out our evaluation, and please send us any recommendations for future topics. This really is for you guys, and we want to make sure that the topics that we are covering are the most beneficial to you. So again, thank you. Happy New Year to everybody. And Brett, do you have one last question?
Oh, it wasn't a question. I just wanted to thank you for doing this. It's
Great.
not only fun to participate, but to see some friendly faces to go with the memos that come across my desk. So thank you for
Absolutely. Well, we thank you for participating, and everybody else as well, and hope to see you in a couple weeks on the 20th of January. Take care.